Hello and welcome to Confidently Wrong, a show by regular dudes talking with confidence about content we have no right to speak about with any kind of authority, but do it anyway. I'm Wesley Nakamura, and as always I'm joined by award-winning director Brian Redondo and Savon Jones aka Captain Bonnie. This is episode 147, and we try to unravel the mystery of Netflix's three-body problem. I'm confident that it's going to be the best show you've ever listened to, and well, hey, if it's not, you can always ask us for a refund.
Incredible!
Hello, gentlemen. Welcome back. It's Confidently Wrong.
Hey.
How are you guys doing? Brian, that is a nice plant you've got behind you. It's
You like this plant?
It's like a dinosaur plant, or like a plant I would expect to see in the Jurassic period or something.
It provides me shade from all the UV rays that enter this sunny room I'm in.
Is it UVA or UVB rays that you're really concerned about here?
I've only heard of UVA. The Cavaliers.
Oh, man. That was a weird... Remember we visited UVA?
Maybe. Did we go to a student conference there? I think we did.
Yeah, that's where we made the bid, right? It was
And
a
the
weird
bid.
place. It was a weird... I don't know.
What
It
Wes
just-
is talking about
it's a
is
weird
we
town.
made a bid to host the same conference at our school.
Yeah.
Which we did win.
We won.
We
did a good
won,
job.
and it was weird too, right? It felt like a sweepstakes. Like they brought us up on stage, like, you've won the bid. You've won a year's worth of homework to organize your own massive conference. Congrats.
Yeah.
Because it's
is
going to
it still
ruin
going?
you. And it did.
Yeah. Is it still going? Brian will never
Who
do something like
knows?
that again.
Who knows?
Yeah,
He was
don't
the
put me in charge of
co-director.
things.
Yeah.
sounds like a massive
He was-
L.
Yeah. It's like,
No, it was awesome. We did a good
here's a
job.
ton of work.
We learned a lot. I will say that. It was a ton of work, but I think we learned a lot in I don't know. I mean, it's a chance to like do things that like don't matter but feel like they matter
Easier ways to learn.
and fail at them or not fail at them. I don't it's good. It's low stakes. It
We-
felt high
yeah,
stakes,
We
but it's
didn't
low
have
stakes.
social media back then.
No social media.
It
We had a
it was
cool
a good way to
website.
get my name and face out there. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I did not have my name and face out there. I didn't know what I was doing. It's great. All right. So on this episode, we are talking about Netflix's new huge budget show. I don't even know. It's probably in the gazillions of dollars. It's called Three Body Problem. I think it is.
I don't know. I think they paid for two bodies on this one. we can discuss.
They thrifted the other one.
2 bodies and a mannequin.
All right, so I kind of the premise of this a little bit, and then I'll let Brian actually explain it. It's just there's this like science fiction world. It's not in the too distant future. It's probably in a fairly modern day setting, and all of a sudden like these weird oddities start to happen. So Brian, can you tell us? Oh, and it's originally started as a novel written by a Chinese author. Of course, I didn't write down their name. Good job, Wes. But it's been translated to English and it's been produced now into a Netflix show, which is it caught my attention. The trailer looked great, and then I don't know. I really enjoyed watching the show. It sounds like from some of our pre-talk that the two of you are not as into it, maybe, but we'll see where that lands us. Brian, what is the premise of Three Body Problem for those of the folks out there who haven't seen it? No spoilers yet.
No spoilers.
If
I
you're
mean,
listening.
the premise could go on and on, right?
Right.
Like we could talk about episode 6, and it's still the premise. But I guess for the uninitiated,
For the first couple episodes, what is the premise?
for those of you that have not bit into this apple just yet, like basically we have some anomalies that are going on across the world. It starts actually with a suicide of a physicist, and the authorities in the UK are looking into it. Why are these scientists? We seem to have some scientists that are offing themselves. They're seeing weird countdown visions. There's anomalies happening within their scientific research. Like they have apparently particle accelerators all around the world, but they're all acting awry and not giving the results that these physicists would expect. And so it's very curious. And so we're trying to look into why those things are happening and how all these things are connected. And then very soon in the first episode, one of the physicists who's at the center of the show starts seeing visions of a countdown in their own eyes. Nobody else sees this countdown, but it's a very ominous, sketchy looking thing that is happening in their eyesight only. And they don't understand why that's happening, right? And then simultaneously to this happening all in present day Earth, we have another storyline that's happening during the Cultural Revolution in China. A woman whose physicist father was executed as part of the Cultural Revolution.
Shout out to Father June. He's from Warrior.
Was it Father June?
Yeah.
I didn't recognize him.
He looked different. He had different clothes and makeup in his hairstyle.
And they made him look much older, probably, right?
Yeah.
So we have that storyline happening as well, and this woman who's also a trained physicist in the Cultural Revolution slowly begins to have access to some other top secret scientific what she thinks might be weapons, or they might be something else. And so you have these multiple strands that are creating a bit of mystery around what is going on in the world, and how will those things play out? What ramifications will they have? And I think it's probably worth mentioning that there's also a VR game that's a part of this. So there's this virtual world that people in the present day are entering as part of this mystery as to why some of these physicists have killed themselves, right? It's revealed that they actually all happen to be playing the same VR game, this very futuristic VR game. What's that all about? So there things are happening in that world. It's quite a bit of a knot of a mystery, and that other mysteries keep revealing themselves after this initial one in the first episode, in a very Lost way. Like the show, in my opinion, has that vibe. And I think for anybody who's just completely baffled by everything I just said, I think one of the other things, at
You're
least
supposed
for
to
me,
be baffled.
one of the things for me that piqued my interest about this show, there are two things, right? One is that the series is based on this famous sci-fi trilogy called The Three-Body Problem. The trilogy itself, I think, has a different name. I think the first book is called Three-Body Problem. Translated from Chinese, Hugo award-winning work, and one of those sci-fi series similar to a Dune or Lord of the Rings or whatever, that people have long said that's going to be impossible to adapt. You cannot make that into a live action thing. And then the second being that the folks who decided to adapt this are the showrunners from Game of Thrones, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss.
Yep.
Who adapted another book series that was also called Unadaptable. So
they're feeling good about themselves.
Those two things are so you have this canonical sci-fi trilogy. The Game of Thrones guys now into this Three-Body Problem Netflix series. I want to watch that. And so that, to me, that was the thing that drew me into the show.
Yeah, we know they know how to make good television. Mm-hmm. That's not a question. And some of the some of the game. Well, they don't know how to finish good television, but they know how to make some good television.
That go hand in hand, player.
Well, we're not at the end yet, so it's okay. And they actually pull in some old friends. We see what is the guy who plays the junk food tycoon?
We have Samuel Tarly.
Oh yeah. And then Lord Sir Davos.
Liam Cunningham is the actor who plays
Sir Davos.
The Onion Knight shows up.
Smuggler.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anybody else who showed up from Game of Thrones, but
we also have Benedict Wong, who the Sorcerer Supreme
does awesome stuff in the show.
Who apparently,
really
who has a great British accent. Is
No,
he
he's
actually
British.
British?
He's British.
He's like he's kind of hard to understand
He's
to me
he,
sometimes in the MCU, but in this he's like
he's
phenomenal.
British. He just has a lot of
I
he's a
I
natural
really
speaking
liked what he
voice.
did in this show. He's just like so funny to me. Like he's just like so flippant, just like meh. He's like, I could see why you're such a bad mom, and she was like, I could see why you're a bad dad, and he's like, yeah.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah. So I love his like, kind of just attitude around that. And we do get to see kind of an interesting or a couple of interesting moments with him and his son, and how they like they have a strained relationship. It's not like unloving. They clearly care about each other. But the son wants more approval from his dad, and the dad is just sort of like, you're kind of being unserious about things. So, let me know when you actually have something to talk about.
I just like seeing Asian dudes with British accents. That's fun. Let's get a whole season of that.
Yeah. And the dad is just like, I don't like your boyfriend. So, I don't know. He's not being homophobic. He just doesn't like the boyfriend.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. So anyways, so lots of things going on in this show. I thought it was a cool premise in terms of I was bought in from the beginning, just seeing the countdown in her eyes, and you're worried that like, what's going to happen to her? Is she going to die? Is she going to kill herself? Is her head going to explode? Like, who knows? Cause you see one of the victims that had died earlier, their eyes are all mangled. I mean, they're just a mess of a corpse. And so you're like, oh my God, like what is going to happen to this lady if it gets down to 0? And why is it counting down? Why is it chosen her? And you start to learn a little bit more about like why it's happening to her, and what kind of ultimately the motivation is behind that, and where it's coming from. So from here on out, friends, we are getting some spoilers into the show. We'll talk about the whole season. I think is it 8 episodes?
Yeah.
Which clearly they're setting up to be continuing, because the story itself, like the main story, doesn't finish in any way at the end of the season. So we'll just talk about what we know. So the show, kind of drops in all these nuggets, especially around some scientific applications, discoveries, and then also some science fiction ideas. How did you feel, or how did you enjoy kind of having all of these like cool, fun science pieces be part of the show? Sav, did you enjoy that, or were you kind of like, it's fine, but like they could have done that a different way?
No, I actually was really digging the science and how the show is science fiction, but they don't go too hard into the future with the science fiction stuff. It feels like, beefed up, maybe actualized versions of tech that might already kind of exist in this world.
Yeah, it's only like 5 or 10 years down the line for most of the science stuff.
And at the very
for human stuff, right?
Or at the very least, it's been advanced in a way that's like, hey, this is stuff that you could get theoretically how someone could come up with this. I don't know. It works to where it doesn't feel like we're hundreds of years in the future, but we're still in the future,
Right.
And we have like peak technology. But that's been working quite a bit for me because it contrasts to the technology, what's the word, gap between some of the warring factions in here. So I like that humans get some pretty dope tech, but when we talk about the alien technology, I guess what I liked was that I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I liked that they didn't try too hard to explain, and they did enough to explain that it's science, but not enough that we have to overthink it. But all you really need to know is that, hey, they got some really advanced shit. Don't try to overthink the details of how it works. We just know that it does this. Like the universal monitoring system, like don't overthink it. It works the way it does. They have high tech.
Yeah.
They explain it to you of what it means for the purposes of the story, and that has worked for me to where it feels like a fantastical world.
Yeah, I think they did a good job with that.
We're not just doing a bunch of tech jargon that I don't care about.
Yeah.
Which this could be
I think
with a show like this could be guilty of just spamming nerd terms at you. And it's like, dude, I'm not a physicist. I don't care. Dumb it down for me. And in English, damn it.
I think that's one of the reasons why the book was considered unadaptable, is because the core of the story is really just messing around with these crazy scientific ideas and theories. And the show at least does a good job of helping us understand some of those theories and how they play out in the story world. So, like just the idea that there's this all-seeing computer, but that they describe it as this sophon that is a type of particle that's able to like fold in on itself, so it can be actually like quite massive,
Mm-hmm.
even though it's tiny and imperceivable to the human eye. I like that's just a crazy idea. The where the Santi come from, the alien race that we're talking about, existing in a universe that has three suns, and like I can't explain to you like what that means planetary wise, but just like also very very cool idea. Like, oh yeah, we know like in layman's terms, like there's that's a gravity problem, right? There's, you have intense gravity from three different suns. Like, how, what kind of ramifications are those going to have? That's a great theory, or a scientific theory, just to like mess around with your head and try to wrestle with. And so like to me, like that is some of the crazy interesting stuff that's happening throughout the series. And then yeah, like the nanofibers, right? We got a ton of that stuff happening all throughout.
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job kind of unveiling some of the things, and the unveiling would kind of explain some of the previous things that had happened. So it was like cool because you could ask a question like, "Whoa, how did that happen?" or "Why is it happening?" And then later on, you would find out like this is how it's happening or this is why it's happening. And I think that was all like really well explained. I mean, I think the biggest one would be like, how did they make the universe wink?
Yeah,
Right? They
the night sky.
the
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Santi basically turn off the stars, and everybody on Earth can see that the stars are not there, and it's like what? And they kind of make it blink, and like they do all these like effects with it, and it's almost as if someone put like a blanket over the Earth, and so you can no longer see the stars. And people are like, well, did the stars disappear? Are we in a simulation? Like there's all these like theories or ideas around it, and it turns out that because of the sophon, right, they're able to sort of change our perception, or it's able to like unfold in a certain way that pulls in like other dimensional, like not dimensions in terms of like portals, but like dimensions that of planes of existence. So I don't know, I enjoyed the way that they use the science. And then I think it's also cool that like most of the characters are scientists or have a background in science. And then the Lei Li Wenjie, what was her name, the mom, the one who was the first scientist in China that we kind of meet.
Let's just call her the mom.
Yeah, the mom, and she ends up being someone who goes through a lot of, hard times, and she sees the sort of hopelessness of humanity in China, right, in her community at the time. And from her experience, she thinks that humanity has gone off the deep end and is no longer redeemable.
Mm-hmm.
And she basically invites the Santi to come and, help conquer our planet in some way, and she thinks like it can't be any worse, like we're already doing that to ourselves and there's tons of misery. Maybe you will do a better job and we won't be so miserable along the way. I don't
She
know that
opened the
they
door to the Viltrumites.
Yeah, I don't know that they really explained that so well. Like, why would she want her people to be conquered,
I mean, I think they
or
explained it
like
perfectly fine.
yeah, I'm just saying, like, as someone who's like a scientist, like you would sort of also understand like this is like, like you're asking, because of the death of your father, you're asking for everybody on Earth to be like either what is it called when you're like subjected, or you're like, the subjugation, right?
Yeah.
You're asking to be that, like, or enslaved, because like you had a bad
Well,
experience,
in
like
her
maybe,
mind, well,
that's your villain origin
I mean,
story, I
Wes, we
guess.
watched
But
her dad get killed in the revolution, and also she was working in a prison camp. She was already enslaved. And so it's not
yeah,
like I know you're looking at it from just a huge, for her point of view, it makes perfect sense. Humans were awful people and did awful things. So in
yeah,
her mind, being subjugated by an advanced race is the lesser of two evils, because she's seen firsthand how awful humans can be. She watched her intelligent, educated dad get killed. She got sent to a prison camp and had to just work the rest of her days and only live because she was smart and they had her work on the project. Like, for her, she had every reason to be like, man, F y'all.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I buy that.
Can we talk about though how she was able to maneuver the giant satellite on top of the mountain while nobody is looking? It's like, there's nobody around. I'm just gonna move it a few
Few
degrees to the right. Like, what the hell? How is nobody noticing that?
They were like, "Oh, if you shoot the signal at the sun will amplify the signal and send it, out into the universe." But good times. Yeah, I don't know. That seems like a security protocol breach there. But maybe things were falling apart. Maybe people were just stressed out by the communist regime or whatever. All right, so we like the science. I really enjoyed the all the characters' reactions to the visor helmet, virtual world that was going on. They like one of the characters ate the sand. They were just like, this place feels so real that I feel like I can reach down and actually take the sand and put it in my mouth, and I can like feel all of that. And so we sort of learn there's a neurological connection of some sort, right? It's not just virtual reality in the way that we experience it today, which is like you see something and you can imagine that you're in that space. It's actually that your whole body feels like it is in that space as well. And then another character goes, how do they know what we're wearing? Because there's no like obvious like cameras on the visor.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the Savon can see it and then can input it into the virtual reality system. But I don't know. I thought that was like a wicked cool thing, and all the characters are like, we don't have any technology like this. There's no obvious screen on it. It just looks like a spoon that you put over your eyes, like a double spoon.
Yeah, I like the part that
Or
they
underwear.
were trying to figure it out themselves, right? And they were saying like, oh, this technology is like 100 generations away from what we have now. And so like part of the fun in watching it was, okay, there's this mystery of like, where is this headset coming from? And like the way that they were talking about it, it made me think like, oh, this story is going to be about like time travelers or something. Time travelers are coming, or like there are those kind of ideas.
I was thinking aliens because I was like, oh, you clearly don't have this tech. Somebody else had to have put it there. But then I was like, how did it get here? How did they teleport it here? I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like the fun of the show is you're trying to figure it out with them. So you as a viewer are also engaged in the scientific mystery as to like, well, how does this work? What are the different possibilities that would facilitate something like this? But the fact that like the answer turns out to be, an aliens who are light years away, and that they have an all-seeing eye computer that's floating around Earth, like that's just a crazy fucking idea.
Yeah,
yeah, that's very ominous.
The fun. I think part of the fun is that like it's a mystery, and I feel like most of the time when there's a show or anything with a mystery, there's rules that the world plays by that you can kind of be like, all right, within the rules of this world, I can maybe try to infer what's going on, like an escape room almost, right? Like there's certain things that it won't do because that would be impossible to figure out. It'd be unfair. And then for this mystery, it's like, now this is going to be unfair. Like, oh man, what's the mystery? Literally technology behind the comprehension of your feeble human mind. Like, unironically that on all levels, which
OP boss right here.
But I was a really big fan of that. Sometimes I feel like mysteries feel like they have to be fair, otherwise the payoff doesn't feel earned. But I feel like the payoff here is just knowing how absurdly outclassed the humans are. Like when they decide to just flex and start just tinkering, basically just flickering the lights on and off on us. I'm like, this is the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen. And what they put on the thing, they literally just say,
you came into my house and flicked the lights off?
I'm just like, oh, so what, you just about to, like, you're just going to just...
They turn the universe off, bro. The stars
off. You're just going to come in my house, eat my... it was disrespectful. And then even what they hijacked the messaging to say, you are bugs.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And that was them realizing that they could understand metaphor a little bit, too. I don't know. I like that part of just how blatantly outclassed humans are, but also our key weapon is that we can lie.
Our other key weapon.
That was a cool moment.
Our other key weapon, which I thought was like really fascinating, was the wall facer ideas. Like, hey, you have an all-knowing computer, but you can't know what's happening right inside my brain, so I'm just gonna keep it locked in
Imagination. Just like something like someone's child would say, "You can't take away my imagination." It's like, you're right, we can't.
Which you could imagine somebody wrote in communist China. Let's be real.
The thought police can't get you.
One place that's safe.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, that's gonna be how we're gonna do it, just by the seat of our pants and one guy's memory or three guys' memories.
All just looking at each other.
So I guess what about this show, and it maybe has some weak points to it, but what about this show has been its strength, and what about this show is like, did you enjoy watching? Brian, where are you at?
So one of my favorite parts, which unfortunately we lose in the second half of the season, is the VR world that they get to enter and play that game, which I thought Savon is shaking his head like, God no. But I thought that to me was a very enticing mystery. It seemed like a cool world, right? Like, I think also like the way it's shot was very different from the way that we see the UK and China and whatever, in these VR worlds. It's, it's the fantasy element come alive. And, the fact that, we have Samuel Tarly and what is the name of the other physicist? Jin
Chung.
Yeah. Jin is like, they're trying to figure out how to play that game. They keep dying. There's a little girl that keeps recurring through every playthrough of the game. And, to me, that was just a very cool imaginative thing to take in, and also wonder about what is really going on here. Well, what does this have to do with anything?
One of the characters is like, you don't know what this tech is doing to you either, or gaining from you while you're using it, and they can't stop. They're just like, this is fun. I like.
We
the mystery of
know
it.
that the other users of that game have already committed suicide. What are you doing in there? And so the stakes felt pretty high to enter those worlds. And, I think that's actually like one of the areas where, we know from Game of Thrones, these guys know how to create these fantasy worlds in a fun way. And, that was very much evidence of that.
Yeah, the helmet still had me confused though, because why would the other people who played the game kill themselves? Did they like figure out the game, get the invitation, say no, and then
maybe
old girl comes and kills them?
Well, the original scientist we see that jumps into the radioactive pit or whatever, I think we learned that she actually kills herself more because of her mother's lying and her mother's like complete betrayal of the human race.
She figured that out in the beginning, that her mom was the leader of like that cult organization.
I think she figures that out, and so that's why she's like, what about God? Because she knows her mom is talking to God, which in this case is the Santi, not actual like Judeo-Christian God.
But what about the others?
She's just like, this
what about
is
the others who
an
killed
impossible
themselves?
thing.
Like, was that like? I'm Brian. You and I talked about
and
this
maybe,
in the pre-show.
but maybe Tatiana killed them too.
Yeah, like
it's super unclear. Yeah, because like really, it seems more like the countdown that you can't turn
freaks
off in
them
your
out,
own
right?
eyes is more of a driver for people wanting to commit suicide, which I could imagine.
So that's just them gaslighting the scientists into literally losing their minds. That's a part of the destabilization plan. But I guess me and Brian were talking about with the game, like, okay, so to complete the game, that requires you to not be like a really smart scientific mind. So who are they giving the helmets to? How do they decide who gets them? Several characters, including the ones in the story, stumble upon them kind of like coincidentally. But also, is that a part of the aliens' plan? Because they clearly have this level of info to see what's going on, that they could coordinate stuff. That part was a little unclear to me, and I think that's what made me very turned off by the entire VR subplot of the story, because I get that it's them trying to explain what the aliens' motive is, because that's the whole point is the whole solution is they have to leave, right? You get it. Let's recruit you. Like, that makes sense. But I don't know. I just had questions of.
weren't they looking for people who could help them?
I guess I don't know. I might have missed that portion.
It's
That's
it really
They
is
weren't
unclear.
looking for people who were gonna hurt them. Like the
Well, they're
people
trying to
who
recruit
committed
scientists.
suicide. Yeah, but the people who committed suicide, they would give them the countdown. They were
They
like,
didn't have the VR
your
game.
research,
But some of
is
them
gonna harm
did.
us.
Right. Benedict
What?
Wong shows that one of the scientists who killed themselves did have the VR set.
Oh, but maybe maybe they made it look like a suicide. I don't know. But like the guy who wrote all the countdown on the wall, I think now that I'm thinking about it, he was probably a suicide, right? Like he was going
Yeah,
crazy.
but he also had the
he
helmet.
took out his own eyes, that kind of thing, right?
Right. But I do think it's unclear, like, why are the Santi recruiting physicists and why are they killing others? Which doesn't make a ton of sense. Like we don't really understand their
I see.
motivations.
I knew who they were killing. They were killing people whose research would end up being
beneficial to
pivotal
useful
to advancing our technology.
Yeah, because they're literally gaslighting them
I
into
don't know.
insanity. Like that's why the timer's there to just freak them out so that they can't. Like that part made perfect sense of why they made the scientists go crazy. It was just there's the helmet, but the helmet requires you to be way too smart for it to just be something that a Joe Schmo, like, you know, even me and Brian, we're talking to Brian, right? Like we say, even if all three of us had the helmet and we knew what the objective was, we don't have the astrophysicist skills to even be able to figure it out and get recruited. So like, are they recruiting some scientists, driving others insane, a little bit of both? That part confused me a little bit, but I also fully acknowledge that maybe they answer that question down the line. Like, it's still 2 more books, but that's the part that I was like,
maybe the scientists they're recruiting, maybe their research wouldn't have led to advancements.
Yeah, maybe, but then we talked about how some of them were suicidal and went insane and had the helmet, and so it's like, are you trying to drive them insane? Are you trying to recruit them? These seem like 2 mutually exclusive concepts right now.
Gotcha. I think that's fair. I didn't pay attention to that. I didn't bump on that.
I mean, maybe
so
I could have missed a detail. I'm going to have to rewatch it because I'm like, this isn't me trying to be a smartass. I'm legitimately confused.
No, I mean, I think that might be right. I think it may have just been something that they sort of didn't fully address because it was like, well, it's kind of a small piece. And like you said, the helmet ends up being a way also to have us understand what the Santi are about and why they're coming. And why they're running from their home world is important for us to understand. As like they're not a race who is dead set on like obliterating us. They're a race that is trying to find a home, and because we reached out to them, they were like, okay, we'll come. You know, this is a 2 birds 1 stone thing. We need a new home, and you need someone to conquer you. So we'll make that deal. It's a win-win for everybody.
Though the mom was warned at first not to respond.
Yeah, so
that's
not
really
all the Santi are
uncertain
together.
Too. Yeah, that's a mystery.
Yeah, so they're coming. It's unclear if they were intended to just like completely like destroy Earth, if they're going to take all of it over, if they were hoping to live in harmony with us. That part is unclear until a little bit later when Mike Evans, who is played by Jonathan Pryce, I think that's his name, famous actor. He
also from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he was the
Game of Thrones. Yeah, what was that other show I was talking about? Slow Horses. He's in Slow Horses too. And Pirates of the Caribbean.
He is also well known for doing Yellowface in the original production of Miss Saigon.
Good job.
Oh, wow.
Good job.
Yeah. He's lucky canceling doesn't go back that far.
Yeah. So have you enjoyed how like there's sort of 3 different settings going on, and we've got sort of like the modern world with the scientists, with the buddy, the group of friends, and then we have the flashbacks to the 70s and 80s basically, or 60s and 70s with Li Wen-jae as she's calling, going through her suffering and then calling the aliens here. And then we also have the setting of the virtual world where we get to see different characters struggle with like, how do you solve these problems? And then later on in the second half of the season, we really just mostly stay in the modern times for the most part. And we get some flashbacks as well to China. Cause like you said, the VR world goes away.
I liked everything but the virtual world. It just didn't land with me. You know, I don't know. It
I think
felt
that's fair.
distracting. The characters having the little old school, ancient dynasty type clothing. I was just like, It felt like some. It just felt like some weird Assassin's Creed shit tacked on to what is an existential alien invasion story. And I get the goal that they were trying to make of this is their motives. I said that before, but I just think the execution and whatnot, it just didn't land. It felt clunky.
I feel like some of that makes sense in that the Sophons would have seen our current day video games and our adventure games and been like, this is something that people are used to kind of seeing and fitting into, and so it'll help them give context or relate to this without having to really just be like a dry, boring game.
Just the
They're
lack of
like, this will be something that they'll relate to. They know what an adventure
the
game
lack
is.
of explanation over just like who gets the
Nerds.
helmet is really
Yeah.
the big thing for me. I was like, all right, so y'all just mailing these
Fair
out.
enough.
Oh, there's no real explanation, but it's really important for y'all's whole like cult thing. He lost me a little bit. Didn't ruin it, but I definitely found myself like sighing when somebody put the helmet on.
All right, so we're getting into some bigger spoilers now. What were your thoughts on the Santi as an invading force? Like, how are you constructing this? Do you feel like they actually have, you know, a scary presence coming in? Brian, are they doing it for you as the villain?
I mean, we're bugs to them, right?
Yeah.
So in a way, yes, and they also are able to, control how we perceive our entire world around us, and so that is some almighty powerful stuff right there. However, it turns out that their kryptonite are lies. Like, what you all are capable of lying? Oh my god! Like, our plans must change. Actually, that makes me think that the initial objectives of the Santi are probably to commingle
Yeah.
with humans, right? Like they're kind of stoking the flames of Jonathan Price's cult. That cult is recruiting more members through the VR game.
I think they're hoping that they'll be received friendly.
Warmly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to prep the welcome party.
Yeah.
They want them to roll out the red carpet for them, and then they realize, oh no, these carpet rollers are deceitful. like they haven't even met Donald Trump yet, and they're like, oh my god, freaking out. So I guess we got to exterminate them instead and treat them as the bugs that they are. So I think that flip is kind of interesting. But the fact that they are 400 years away, that their light speed travel isn't all that fast, right? Like their technology is able to come to Earth, right? Like their Sophons are able to come to Earth. They're able to send communication to the Earth, but they're still a long ways away. I think that sort of mutes this looming threat.
It's like climate change.
That's also something that that's also what part of what makes the story interesting and unique is like, oh there is this great big danger, but it's going to be way beyond your own lifetime. And how do we respond as a people?
But unlike climate change, it's in your grill. There's no ambiguity. There's no this is some like I mean, not like it's an invisible threat. The aliens very much made it very clear, hey yo, what's good?
I mean, climate change is also
you can't deny like somebody just told you you're a bug.
Yeah.
Like, everywhere.
Yeah.
On every
I'm sure somebody will find a way in that show. They'll be like, oh, it's just a prank.
It's just a deep,
I don't believe it.
Hackers, it's QAnon.
Yeah. I was gonna say is that we were asking about characters earlier, and one of the ones that stood out to me is Sir Davos. You know, his character is very different than like a typical like hero in a show, right? He's very pragmatic. He's very much just like, no, we're gonna win, whatever it takes. We are gonna do that thing. I'm managing this. I'm controlling everything. I am, the one who is going to be doing this thing, and not in a conceited way, like I just feel confident in my ability to manage people and manage projects, and he's just like the ultimate project manager, right? Like that's his role.
And he's the PM that wants to live on and on. He's like, I'm gonna freeze myself, wake myself up like every other month, and then just keep on going for 400 years.
But what's interesting, or what is interesting to me about his character, is how blunt he is about, like, I'm making these tough calls. I think I have the best plan. We're at war. Like, all things are fair right now. Like, it doesn't matter, if one person dies or 10 people die, because the only thing that matters is we're able to fight off the Santi when they get here. And he's willing to like try any kind of idea. He doesn't stop it like, well, this might be possible. He's just like, find a way. Like, this is what it is. And he's very cutthroat about it. And that's such a different way that like normally people work together with each other, right? Like normally people are like, well, what do you think? Let's collaborate. Let's do this. Yada, yada, right?
Not worked in a corporate office before.
Also big Cecil Stedman energy right now. I know we just did the Invincible episode, but like it's very much, he reminds you of Cecil in that it comes,
but with
it
no
comes
feeling.
off as,
at least Cecil kind of,
I mean,
like,
it comes off as cruel, but ultimately it's one of those like, yo man, to your point, I'm the hard call maker. Somebody gotta be one who's willing to take the last shot and be okay with it missing or going in. And he said, give me the rock. I'm rising up for the 3.
That's what I like about him, is that he's he's the Michael Jordan of the show. But I don't think I'm wired that way. So I like seeing characters who are more like that.
Because didn't he approve the boat plan? Which we didn't talk about the boat at all.
Yeah, which I want to talk about next. So tell me, how did you feel about episode 5? Because I think I watched episode 5 before you guys, and I was like, guys, episode 5 is the one. Like, holy cow. Sav, how did you react to that? For people who haven't seen it yet, they stretch the nanofibers across a canal, invisible lines, you can't see them, and then as the Santi followers' boat, so Jonathan Pryce's boat, comes through the canal, it shreds them like a sliced cheese wire. Like, it's basically just a big tripwire, but it's like sharp as knives, and it slices their ship into ribbons. Deli meat.
Yeah,
including the people. The people are also sliced,
including the children,
including loud children,
and the children,
fucking children. Yeah,
just because they wanted to, like we said, his name is Wade. Davos's character wants to get to the plans and the information that they think is held on the ship. They wanted some intel.
Yeah. I was.
Were you horrified?
Yeah, intrigued? I was blown away, because when I realized, oh, they're gonna do this thing, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be awful. And so I knew that, so I already had the suspense. But then my question became, okay, this is gonna be awful, but like, how are y'all gonna portray this on screen? Because lots of books have awful things that happen, or shows have things that happen, but is it going to be a top-down view from like a distance where we just see what happens from the outside of the ship? Are we going to get an inside view? Like, that alone can kind of impact how you as a viewer perceive something. And they did not pull any damn punches. And Frank, I'm going to be honest with you, they were way more brutal with it than I imagined that they were going to be. I thought it was going to be we see it go through, and a lot of it's more of a tell, not show. It's implied. You can infer that this happened. Maybe you hear screaming, but they said, nah, B, we're going to emphasize that there's a bunch of kids here at the thing playing. We're going to emphasize and straight up show people getting sliced in half. It's like that scene from that old horror movie, Ghost Ship, where the wire rips across the deck and it slices the people. It's like that, but ratcheted up to 10. Ratcheted up to 15. I was blown away. And then, man, they had way too much fun showing what that awful experience would be like from different angles. They showed it from a perspective of kids watching from the deck. They showed it from a perspective of people not knowing what's going on. They showed it from a perspective of people knowing what's going on, but not quite knowing what's going on. Knowing that people are slicing apart and dying, but not knowing what's happening because the fibers are invisible. They even showed just 2 people talking in the hall, and you could ominously see the little children's hand turkeys getting sliced like a paper cutter, leading up to the lady standing next to it.
Woo!
I've never been made so viscerally uncomfortable by something in a while, because yeah, you know it's a cult and that they portray humanity, but the fact that they're all just casually going about their day, have no idea what's happening, it's a mystery, they don't know what's happening, they're confused. That's such a awful just thing to see happen, and I'm glad that the producers of the show had the guts to really show us that brutal interior view, because it made us feel, at least for me, sympathy for a faction that I really feel like I shouldn't be having sympathy for. Even beyond, like the kids, I had instant sympathy, but even the regular folks, I was like, man, I know that they betray humanity and they're trying to get this info and it's meant to help save like the human race, but this is awful. Could we like?
Can I throw a wet blanket on this though?
Like, you talk about the CGI.
It was visually interesting, but all of that was just undercut by the ridiculousness of it. Like, they already said earlier in that episode, we need to get this, you know, this batch of information, which is probably like in a book or a hard drive or something. We have no idea where it is on this giant oil tanker. That's why we can't go in guns blazing or anything like that, because we risk destroying it. So instead, we're going to get
the whole ship.
Tiny nanofibers that we can't even see with our own eyes and slice this thing like a turkey at a deli.
So you thought it was too much going on.
That's not going to destroy the thing that we're looking for?
No, they established that the nanofibers aren't going to because of the way the nanofibers cut through stuff, if it's like a tech data thing, it won't damage it permanently. That was the specific reason.
What?
Whoa, did they say that?
That makes no sense.
That doesn't make any sense.
How would a square brick hard drive withstand the turkey slicer?
The idea is that the line is so thin that yes, it gets cut, but it's so thin and nano that you could reattach it and be able to recover what's on it. That was the logic.
Oh
the logic was that it's such a fine slice that for something inorganic like this with the tech, they can
put it back together.
Piece it back because it's so thin, like it was never cut.
God damn.
But that doesn't apply to human
beings. Did they know it was a hard drive that they were looking for?
Yes, they knew it was a hard drive.
I think they knew it was
I don't know.
Look, I'm just saying.
That did feel weird that like that was the solution, but oh man, what a visual scene! Like I said, be sitting down when you watch that. Like,
otherwise
they
delete everything, right? Wasn't that the fear? It's like if we try and do this any other way, we'll either completely destroy it or they'll have time to delete it if they know they're under attack.
Yep.
So it had to be
something like
a surprise attack, a science surprise attack.
It was a surprise attack.
Surprise.
We were all surprised.
Slice.
I loved it. All right,
I was making that
you out of here.
Yeah, I gotta bounce.
All right. We'll talk to you later. We'll finish up. We got a couple more questions. Me and Sav will do it. Brian, make sure your file uploads, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you have to do it later. We'll see. Okay. So we now know by the end of the season how powerful the Santi are. Yep. Good God. What? I don't even know. Like, this just feels like it's just not even a fair fight at all. And that like, the two plans, basically, one of them has failed. One of them was, let's send a probe to the fleet and have it gather information, which like I didn't even understand. Like, how was Will, even if he was caught, how was he supposed to send information back to us that we could use? But whatever. And then that plan doesn't work out. That was the final piece of the last season or the last episode where we find out that it's unsuccessful. Yep. And then the other part is what we talked about, the wall facers. Their job is to make plans, but not tell anybody what the full plan is, just to like start executing things, and then people will do them no matter what. This feels like a very not good plan, but I like that there's a sliver of hope that because they can't read our minds, and humanity is able to deceive, humanity is able to do these things that we normally think of as our weakness, could actually be our biggest strength here. Sav, I don't know. Do we stand a chance here? Because I say no. They're going to be obliterated.
I mean, I feel like this is one of those, even if humans come out on top, it's going to be a Pyrrhic victory of like, yeah, you won, but at what cost? Like, that's how I see it. I don't see it as like humanity is taking a big, massive L, but even if they get a W, it's not going to be the W you want.
It's not going to be the W you want. All right, we might get George W. Bush. That's
It's like you
what
could
might end up
win, but
happening.
it's just like, but did you win? Like,
Yeah,
okay, look around you. Cool, we beat the aliens, but like they still,
we lost ourselves in
yeah,
the
or they beat
process.
the brakes off us. So it's like, hey, oh look, okay, we're bruised and bloody. We're still worse off than we were before all of this. So I don't know, man. But there's still like multiple seasons. There's still multiple books left. Like, and just with how wild this ride has been this season, I just don't even know. I mean, it's gonna be more twists and turns. I just don't know what else they could possibly do, but I know it's gonna happen. So I don't know, man. But clearly, there's some kind of thing with their whole hitting, keep it in your brain plan. I'm very curious. It's like, all right,
Yeah,
what's the end game with this shit? Because
I
we're
like
throwing
the
stuff at the
harebrained
wall
nature of
right
all
now.
this
Huh?
stuff.
No, I like
Yeah,
it too.
I like the spaghetti. Just try it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit, what do we got to lose? Like, these guys have a Savon that can like measure and understand everything we're doing and hear everything we're saying. Like, try something different. Like, don't just keep doing the same things over. What about a guy who's just like chaotically just can command anything he wants to command, and we got to do it, or three people who can do that. All right, let's take a side tangent because I want to get your opinion on this. In the show, they send Will's brain, not even his body, just his brain. They take it out, put it in a cryo chamber, and they're going to preserve it and send it. Their idea is we'll send it to the aliens. They will pick it up. They'll try to study it, but in the process, they might bring Will back to life, and then Will can somehow send us information as kind of a double agent or like a secret, like not even a secret agent, just like just an
Yeah, just like,
agent
hey, get some info.
as
A
a
scout.
spy. Yeah, as a scout to give us any kind of information that we need. Ultimately, that plan fails, but had it succeeded, I guess I could see that's like maybe useful. Sav, if you were in charge of the project, you don't have to send your dying friend, but who do you think would be the best person to send? Like, are you sending a Navy SEAL? Are you sending an engineer? Are you sending a monkey? Just a chaos monkey? What is what is your thinking here? I feel like we come about this in a different way.
To represent the human race, and this is the goal to help save human race.
Yeah. To be the will, the person who's gonna like somehow find out what they need to find out and send us information back or undo the sabotage the aliens
F it, I'm
somehow.
sending you, Wes.
You're
With the
sending
number
me?
one pick in the draft, we are sending Wesley Nakamura
Wait,
to
why?
represent Earth. Because
What is my strength here?
being a dude.
I swear to God, if this is a backhanded compliment, I'm editing out of the show.
Being a dude. Just being an everyman. We don't need some fancy pants scientist or some person who got this super inflated opinion of themselves. We just need a regular salt of the earth man, a father,
Okay.
a teacher, a man in the community, a real just
All right.
like American out here to just let them know, hey, we're just people out here just vibing, dog. And if they aren't,
Okay.
and I figure if they see you, one of two things gonna happen. They're gonna see your chill, immaculate vibes and say either, let them just do their thing, or
Okay.
nah, we gotta get rid of them. But that's a dice roll that I'm okay taking. Whatever
right.
you do, it will be
So
authentic.
you'd sacrifice me, you debody me, take apart my body, take my brain, send it to space,
with
and
your
hope that
consent.
I'm the one. With my
With your
consent.
consent. We're not gonna just.
I have to sign it 5 times.
You gotta sign it 5 times, shake on it, do the little training course video of potential side effects and all that,
Yeah, DocuSign everything.
liability, all that. So but I would not, Wes, I would not shoot your brain into space without your consent, especially knowing that it could just go off rail, which at that point is just long form murder. Or just long form euthanasia.
I like that long form murder. Are there other instances of long form murder in the world?
I mean, pretty much anything, all the unethical stuff corporations have done. I would say that is pretty much
environmental racism.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Firestone with those tires they had back in the day. When the people had the infected baby formula, like to me, that's the long form.
Okay. All right. That's
what about
true.
you? Who you saying?
Greed is at the heart of all of those stories, by the way.
Yeah, what about you shooting in space?
Okay. I don't know if I should send someone cutthroat. Like, should I send, like Lance Armstrong, who is just like, fuck it, like, I'm sending it, and like, this is, no one's gonna like touch me, motherfucker, like, or like Die Hard's Bruce Willis. Should we send someone like that? Should we send someone who's more like of a
Oh, you think they're
diplomat,
gonna
like
fight the
Dalai
aliens? You
Lama?
think they're gonna fight them? Because if you send a badass, they're
I
not
don't
gonna be able
know.
to fight them, especially if you're just a brain.
Well, maybe they'll bring back their body, and maybe their brain will be hooked up to wires, and their brain will figure out how to like fuck with them. Like I don't know. Or should we send someone more like like peaceable, like Dalai Lama, someone like that, Malala? Are we sending the best of humanity to share the wisdom that they have found and to represent us well? I don't know. I would kind of think that like I'd actually want someone who's just like more of a spy, like Mission Impossible Tom Cruise, or Fast and the Furious The Rock. Someone like that who's just like
You just want to
who could think on their
You just want to
feet.
send a damn action hero's brain without the other parts of their body that lets them be an action hero.
Right. Well, once they get
They're
there,
not gonna just
they'll grow their body.
Just give Rock
They said they could grow a
They're
body.
not gonna just give The Rock a prime The Rock body and say, "All right, man, like what's up?"
Well, maybe that's
Our
better. I don't know if
potential
he needs a huge
invaders.
hulking body in the middle of space. Like we don't even know what the Santi look
Lord,
like. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're very small, like energy. Maybe they're not even humanoid. Or even maybe they don't even have like organic bodies. Maybe they're made of plasma or energy or something like that. So maybe they don't even. Maybe The Rock doesn't even need his body. He just needs some way to get around and subterfuge. I feel like I would, go back in time, and I would get like King Arthur, from King Arthur and the fairy tale days, because it seems like this guy, he could create alliances as he did with his Knights of the Round Table. He would think out the problem and not just rush in. He seems like he has all the tools. So I'm sending King Arthur. Unfortunately, I couldn't send his knights with him because I think that would be helpful, but I would send King Arthur. If I couldn't send King Arthur, Oprah would find a way. She'd take over. How do you feel about that?
Wes,
I'm changing. I don't want King Arthur. I want Oprah.
Good God.
Oprah like built herself up from, like from her college days, a small little radio show or whatever, and then she became
Listeners, Wes is going to doom us.
She would put the fate of humanity. I would trust her. With the 5% chance that she had, or it's actually like a 0.05% chance that she had, she would maximize that 0.05% chance. Tell me I'm wrong. She would do everything in her power, and she would come up with great ideas and be able to communicate well.
I'm not going to say that on the record.
She would tap into whatever the Santi want and understand what it was that they needed and be able to provide it for them without them having to crush humanity, I think. Or she would help them find their feelings and get in touch with themselves.
I'm not saying that on the record, but if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. I'm not going to go on the record.
I like her chances better than my chances, I'll tell you that.
I would rather roll the dice on you than on Oprah. I don't have that anymore.
All right. Well, I think that's it. What I'll say this. Would you recommend that people watch it? Because you were a little bit like lukewarm on it. I don't think you think it's a 10 out of 10.
I didn't like the virtual reality helmet sequences, but
yeah. But should people watch it?
I think the scope of the story, if you're into like sci-fi alien invasion type stories, it's still really good. I think it's worth watching.
Okay. So qualifiers.
It's a good show. It's worth watching. If you're into the genre, it's worth watching. I think if you're not into the genre, it might be harder for you to immediately just get into. But if you're into,
like, I don't think Jen would be into it.
But if you're into just mysteries and thrillers and with some science fiction elements, this is a really good show. I just had specific things I didn't like, but that's less. I was more like that was less about the larger scope of the story, more so just certain ways to execute it. But I think it's a good show.
Right. Better or worse, or like, did you enjoy it more than True Detective season 4? Did you enjoy it more than Invincible season 2?
Invincible is just better. So that's because that's a genre thing. True Detective just like fumbled the bag and just dropped the ball. I don't think this show dropped the ball. It's just certain things are just not appealing to me. But that's different than something I thought was just bad.
Okay. All right,
You
friends.
should watch it though.
Hit us up at confidently_pod. Sav says watch it. I say watch it. I think it's good. I don't think it's for everybody, but I think a lot of people will enjoy it. The way that they unfolded the mystery, unraveled the mystery of how things were going, and then once the mystery is no longer a mystery, how you then deal with like, okay, well now what do we do once the aliens are here? I guess this is spoilers, so people have already seen it if they're listening to this part of the show. But if you haven't, I think it's worth watching. The way they build it out is pretty cool, and it never feels like, oh man, like I totally knew what was happening, or I totally have no idea where that came from. A lot of things feel like they were built up, and the show is well put together like that. So we'll be back next time. I didn't do my homework, so I don't actually know what we're talking about next time. We'll put it on socials. So friends, we're out of here. Have a good one. Bye.
Later.
Incredible!